Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Kailey Sweeney, and you had a near-death experience just 5 years ago.
I did. Well, 6 years ago,
Oh,
but
six. Okay.
it took about another year for the things that I learned that I needed to do from my near-death experience to really start incorporating that into my life. So, we have this it takes what 9 months to birth a child after conception. So I look at my near death as really a kind of birth. It really, for me, it really was a rebirth.
Okay. So
Yes.
start wherever you like and take as long as you like, and then we'll
Okay.
discuss it. Okay.
Okay. Well, that'll be great. Well, there's a few things that because I want to make sure that I get some points out of the way in case as I
Okay.
tell a story, there's things that I think are important that I learned that I just want to get out of the way first. One of those is never let what you think would be and your highest and best life be something that you set aside or that you don't do out of fear, out of fear of what might happen to you when you die, or that there's a certain amount of risk involved in it. Because it may very well be that that thing is your life purpose. That's something that I did that I kept putting off. I put my best life off to the point that I built myself a nice little prison that I couldn't get out of. And it took my coming face to face with really my transcendent other uh, and in order to be shaken enough and know that I'm loved enough that it was okay for me to love myself and do that. That's one thing. So really live without regret. It's like memento mori, as a Latin phrase that basically means remember you're going to die, and
Yep.
don't let don't let that keep you from living your best life as as I came to learn. So let me my I can't talk about my near death without talking about my early life. Um, if I was assigned male at birth, which to me sounds a really strange way of saying that. That's kind of the current language that's being used. I probably would just I would say something else. I was born with the spirits of a a girl, and yet somehow the body turned out a different way. I think my mind, my emotions, the things that really are the essence of who I am, um, were feminine, but the physicality aspect of it was different than that. I didn't really come to experience that something was perhaps off kilter until I went to kindergarten. Most all of my family, uh, my mom's brothers and sisters, they all had boys. So I had all male cousins. So growing up till I went to school, I'd only been around boys. And then I go to kindergarten and there's girls around. I'm going, I want to play with you. I want to play. I want to play. Well, guess what? No, girls they don't want to play with the icky boys. And I go and play with the boys, and I mean, they're pushing each other around, and they're being aggressive and getting dirty. And I'm, oh, I don't want any part of that. Um, the thing that I remember most distinctly, my first thoughts of really wanting to be a girl was we had a show and tell, and a girl brought her ballet instructor to class, and then she was dressed as the prima ballerina, And in fact, they went to the gym and had they both did a performance for the class, and it was for me it was the most beautiful thing I had seen my entire life. And oh my goodness, I didn't want to just do ballet. I wanted to be her. I wanted to be able to move like she did, and to be able to present like that. Just all of that essence. I wanted it so bad that I went home and I told my parents that. And the reaction I got was like, well, I guess we could put you in maybe tap dance. Boys don't really do ballet, or well, boys do ballet, but anyway, um, what my parents sees I love you very much and I appreciate you, but the first thing that I was signed up for in terms of like an extracurricular was football. And my dad was a great football player. He was, I think he was a hero really at his high school. And I know in his heart desire he would have liked for me to be the same and do the same, but I didn't want that at all. That was the farthest thing. And so anytime I would do something that was, really more masculine, um, I would try to like it, but I would hate it. I would really
Oh,
hate it. Yeah. Um, and I had a couple of times where I remember being going to the bathroom was always I didn't like it. There's a couple times between kindergarten and fourth grade that I had boys that would not just pick on me, but kick me and hit me when I was in the bathroom.
why?
And I don't understand what it was about me. Why would they single me out to kick? Yeah, why? Why would they kick me and beat me? They said, "Oh, you're queer, you're gay," and I go, "What?" Um, and we would always get caught. I say we get caught by the principal. I'm there, taking all this in, punches and kicks. And and I'm scared to death. I go to the principal, and the principal, he talks about, so what exactly happened? Everybody has to give their story, and boys, they say well, the principal asked me what happened, what they said to me. And I said, well, they said that I was queer and that I was gay. And well, do you know what that means? And I go, are you that? And I go, well, I think it means that you're a boy that likes boys, and I really like girls.
So much I want to be
I
one,
don't,
huh?
I don't like boys at all. I guess I'm not. In a manner of speaking, that was true. Um, so I guess I didn't quite get it, but um, anyway, so yeah, so I did go through some bullying. Um, but basically, what I did is I adapted, and I, you know, adjusted and lived the way that I thought I was a society wanted me to, whether it was family, whether it was um, my peers in school, whoever, and so I really tried to fit in, and more or less, I succeeded at that. I did though, often pray. I was trying to negotiate with God, and I always felt like I knew God was watching me all the time, and so I had a lot of pent up guilt there. But I would pray, and I go, "Hey, um, and I would like to spend just one day as a girl, so I can know what it's like to be a girl." And tell you what, I'll spend one day in hell just so I can know what it's like to be a girl just for one day, please. I go home, go to bed, wake up next day, and uh, same as ever, right? Groundhog Day. I'm waking up, no change, same day, over and over and over. Mm. Um, I started doing theater in fifth grade. I enjoyed putting makeup on. That was pretty cool. Although I was told often that it's like, hey, you need to tone your lipstick down. You're going on stage and you're kind of looking like a whore. And I go, not that I knew what that was, but all right. So I had to blot. I had to do a lot of blotting because I had this bright red lipstick, which I thought was great.
You're funny. Like you could be a stand-up comic. You're funny.
Oh my God. And then by fifth or sixth, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, I was I was a well-behaved kid. I didn't, I was the kid who would put the apple on my teacher's desk, and I wanted the teacher to like me, and I liked my teachers. I liked going to school. I did well in school. Um, and Well, so my parents, they just trusted me and they would leave me at home by myself. They were both business people and always had something going on. So I'd be at home for short periods of time by myself. But every time I had the opportunity to be at home alone, it wasn't, Home Alone like the movies. This is me going, putting my mom's clothes on, raiding her closet, putting pantyhose on, putting her dresses on, makeup on, looking in the mirror going, and think it was just the greatest thing. And if I did it too long, I'd hear a crack at the door. It's kind of how you can. It's like there's a sense. You know how when a door opens, the pressure in the entire house changes. It's like I can almost feel that pressure of the change, the change and the pressure of the house just from the door opening before I can even hear it. Going, oh, I needed to change. And so boom, 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 boom. I get back to where I was. Um, it's funny when I finally did come out to my mother. I said, "Did you not know? How could you not know?" Because I was using her makeup. So, I mean, if I was, her foundation had to be bone dry when she needed it. Her mascara should be like, like, where did it all go? Well, I don't know, it went on me. and and she said, I had no idea. Oh, come on, Mom. And so no, she said, I thought you were going through a phase.
How
Guess
old were you
what?
when you came out?
I was in my 40s.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow, that you went a long time as a
that
male.
was a long time. It
I mean, you
was
got married, right? And you were a conservative minister, is that correct?
oh, I wasn't conservative. The church just was happened to be conservative.
Oh, okay. But I mean,
Yeah,
you got
well,
married, right?
I did. So yeah, I'm okay. So I'll move that one. So that was early. That was early. I wrestled in high school,
Okay.
college. College, I started a Christian magazine. In fact, the magazine that I started, believe it or not, it was early funded by Pat Robertson. Can you believe that? Um, I did something that he was related to. Um, yeah, and I graduated from college. I was business major. Wanted to do philosophy, religion. I needed to do something where I make money, so I did business. Ended up going into my father's business. My dad was a kind of Horatio Alger story where he came from very meager means and worked hard and pulled stuff up as bootstraps. He opened up a
Okay.
real estate office and bought and sold real estate, and so he was his own little, Mr. Trump of the Shenandoah Valley of the
Is
Virginia.
that what you did too? Real estate?
I ended up going into that same business. Yeah,
Okay.
I did. And as soon as I graduated, my mom was like, "Hey, like what? I hope you don't mind. Uh-huh. I gave your telephone number to one of our tenants. Really? Yeah. So I thought that you might like to meet her. She's really sweet, and she's got a really good job, and I know I'm not supposed to tell you anything about her, financials, she has a good credit score and all this stuff. And I'm like, Mom, Mom, what did I do? I called her. And I dated her. I dated her for 5 years. And she's a lovely woman that I loved and still love. Um, and you know, I thought when I was in my early 20s, I thought that all of that I had experienced in my childhood was something that I would outgrow. I thought it was a phase. And now, then, not now, then, I was a man. And I would live the life of a man. So I did what often occurs in someone's life that has gender dysphoria, and that's called purge. Through, you know, I I didn't have at that time there wasn't the internet, so there were magazines for ordering you know, breast implant things and bras where you could, you know, stuff them, and shoes and everything that would fit a man that was women's clothing. And so I had those magazines, I had that stuff sitting around. I had my own little stash, and I threw everything away, and I said, I'm never doing this again. Never doing this again.
Is this when you were
Dated.
married?
This was before I was married. This is my
Oh,
20s.
gotcha.
And I did. I put it aside. The very last thing that I remembered, she had moved to another city. It was 90 miles from where I lived, and for a job. But I kept going to see her almost every weekend. I was like, I chased her. I wouldn't let her go. Um, and in that city, there was a magazine that was a kind of a cultural magazine, things were going on. And in the classified ads, there was something called Virginia's Secrets. Virginia Secrets, what's that? It was really support group
Was what?
for support group for
Oh,
people like me who um, didn't have a chance to get out and dress on them as a woman. It was cross dressers and people who were transgender. And I had a telephone number, and I called, and I talked to the person about the meeting, and they told me where it was and when it was, and talked about, you know, some of their rules, and, you know, it was okay to, if I couldn't dress as a woman, it was okay to come however you're comfortable. Um, and I got really excited. I thought, I'm going to go to this meeting. And after I hung up, I went, "Mm, I felt so much shame. I can't do that. I've got my business. I'm working for my dad. I'm dating. I can't do that. Um, I'm not doing this again. Never ever. Purge everything out of my life, out of my mind, as much as I could. A few years later, I got married. We had a kid. I became manager of one of our real estate offices, our broker. Became fairly successful, really. Was building houses, selling houses, buying, fixing them up, reselling them, buying rental properties, starting a few companies of my own. At the same time, there was something missing. Um, I've always felt close to God, and we moved close to Charlottesville, and there was this church that had their kind of a virtual seminary. And men from this church would study for the priesthood in an Anglican church. And I started doing that. That was 2000 no 90s 1998. I started my first class. I studied for 6 years. There's a couple year gap between I finished my training, and I was ordained to the priesthood. But I was ordained to the priesthood in November of 2006. Um, and I was two of us that were, or this, I'll have to get back to this later, but there was another man, who was a few years older than me. He used to be a Presbyterian minister, who was ordained to the priesthood at the same time I was. But I remember the bishop taking my hands, and they wrap your hands with a chasuble, but just think of it as like like almost like a silk scarf, and anoint your hands with oil first, and in the shape of a cross, and then wraps your hands, and is praying over your hands for all of these different things, reading the gospel, for um, saying mass, presiding over Holy Communion. And I remember praying then, even though I had purged. Of course, there was always this little thoughts going on. It wasn't just thoughts, it was virtually every time I would see a woman, I was jealous. Can you imagine that? 50% of humanity made me not made me not want to be who I was and made me think that something was wrong. And I was praying, God, take this away from me. Take this away from me. Take this, what I thought, take this sin away from me. I was ordained. Um, Started visiting some we had mission churches throughout the states, and Charlottesville was kind of this little church that would seed other little mission churches. Um, and so I was going to Fredericksburg, different places. Um, and this is a time that I started to really get close to God. My prayer life became uh, really strong at that point, and I spent a lot of time alone with my divine, and with my creator. And a few times I thought I experienced God speaking to me. There was a time when I resisted going into the ministry, and I remember like the voice of God saying, "You you will go into ministry." I'm like, okay, I will. Um, then there was a Sunday where I had a mass I was giving communion at this church right after giving a sermon, and right in between the prayers it was a pause, and again I'm in the pulpit, and I it's not so much like a verbal voice, it's like a whole body knowing, and this knowing was, this will be your church. Like this place, this mission where you are right now, will be your church. I'm just bopping around from church to church every week in different parts of the state. So this is the very first time I was there. And I'm like, this will be my church. Okay. Um, Next week I was in a church in another part of the state. Well, when I heard that voice, um, it was Palm Sunday. Very next Sunday, I was in a little town near Lynchburg, that had it probably still does, had an Anglican church, and their priest had left, and so they needed someone. They wanted somebody for Easter, so I was there for Easter. First time there. I'm celebrating Mass there, just like I always know to do. And then I hear my wife coming up behind me. You know, she's not supposed to come up behind me during mass, right, and start
Mhm.
talking to me. That just doesn't happen. You don't do that. And she's like, "Hey," saying what my old name was. Hey, I'm like, really? Yeah, yes. And she says, so and so's mother has died. It's not like I heard any commotion going on during the service while I'm doing all this. You think if somebody was dying, I would hear about it, right? Well, it was an older lady in her like a mid upper 80s, and she started to have some heart issues, and so her son-in-law was a doctor, and he took her out into the narthex, and then our little social hall area, and to try to make sure she was okay, and they called the ambulance, and they didn't want the ambulance coming and disturbing the service. I mean,
So let's not let
s-
life-saving disturb service.
my God, I mean, where are your priorities, right?
Right.
Um, and well, I stopped everything. I mean, what am I supposed to do? And I said, okay, hey, someone's helping me out. I was like, could you give me a prayer book, please? They gave me a prayer book. And I went back to where she was, and I knelt over her. And the doctor looked at me, and he had been trying to get a pulse, and it wasn't a pulse. He tried to see if she was breathing. She wasn't fogging anything, and she had lost her bodily functions. and he wasn't even trying CPR or whatever. She, for all in all appearances, she was gone. And so I laid my hand on her. I prayed over her, and meanwhile, everybody else is waiting for me to finish communion. I mean, there's nothing else I can do for her. The ambulance is on its way. It seems that she's gone. And so I went back, made an announcement, and we dedicated the rest of the service to her in the mass. And so we had mass. And then I went back out. And here she is wide awake. The ambulance is there taking her out. They had done. She said, I don't want to go. They're taking her to the hospital. I don't want to go to the hospital. I want to stay here. And she's eating a ham sandwich. I mean, the thing that stood out to me, she was hungry. She was eating a ham sandwich, and she was fighting, not wanting to go. And everybody in church was like, "This is a miracle." And then during that week, when I lived 90 miles. Everything's going to be 90 miles. I was 90 miles away from where this church was, where I worked. And in the meanwhile, they're calling the bishop, going, "Hey, we want this for our priest." He's getting bombarded. We want that priest. We need that priest. And I'm trying to get an idea, just absorb what really went on. And to this day, I still struggle with that. But they some of them had really had bought the idea that it was a miracle, and they were just calling me Father so and so. They were calling me Saint so and so. No, I'm still alive. Don't do that yet, please. Right. Well, I did. I became their priest there, and I was there for a little over 2.5 years. And well, do you remember that Sunday before about what I said about God saying this will be your church?
Yeah.
And well, they got their own priest, so okay, that's not my church. They had a priest, and I was going back to the church in Charlottesville, just assisting there, doing one service a Sunday, and I was teaching the catechism and visiting the sick after services. Basically, what
Was
I was
this Catholic? No, was this Catholic?
This is a high church Anglican Catholic. Yeah,
So you
it's
were a
like
Catholic priest.
I was, but see, we could be married, but they didn't ordain women. Women did not serve at the altar in that church. It was pretty daggone conservative in terms of its theology.
Okay, so it was like Catholic, only you're allowed to marry.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, there's more differences than that. But for broad sakes, yes, that's right. Okay. That's right. I mean, I wore a collar and black, and our catechism, our sacraments were essentially identical to the Roman Catholic Church. Anyway, well, after a certain period of time, and we went through the Great Recession. My dad was like, "Do you want to take over the business?" I'm like, "No, I want to take over the business." I wanted to be a priest. I wanted to do full-time ministry. And so my dad sold the office, and we had new owners, and I clicked with them very well. And right after the Great Recession, I had my best like professional success, whatever that means, from there in the 2011. It was
So
remarkable.
you did take over your dad's business?
I didn't take over my dad's business. I didn't. He sold it.
Okay.
He sold it. He sold it. I wanted to be a pastor, and what am I going to do with that? How can I pass? I thought the two were antithetical. It's not that. I just would be so busy with the one, there'd be no way I could do the other. Not really. So that was my conclusion. Not that was necessarily the way it had to be, but that's what I thought. So I go to this new church. I'm there. There was a Sunday that the priest at this other church that where I had heard the voice of God, right? Um, the priest left, and they called me, and they wanted me to come and supply, and I started, and they went, we like you here. I mean, they like my, we were a young family. If you have an older, mostly older congregation and you have a young priest with a young family, you've got a kid, so you get this pretty family, they're like, hey, because the idea is when you have a young family and you have someone who's, you know, I'm outgoing, duh. And well, okay, this kind of person, here's an energetic priest that's going to come here and build the church, and maybe young families will be attracted. Yeah, it doesn't really necessarily work out that way, but that's the thought. So I went there and I gave it the good college try. Um, when I was there, I was going for a walk one day just for exercise, thinking about my sermon on Sunday. Across the street is this guy who's digging in the trash can and have another one of these voice of God things, and God is like, you can think about your sermon or you can live it. Always in these kind of parable kinds of things.
You can think about your sermon or
You
what?
can think about your sermon, because I was walking thinking about my sermon on Sunday, or you can live it.
Oh,
It was like actions versus words.
oh.
And I thought of it, and so I stopped walking and went over to the gentleman who was digging in the trash can, and I said, can I get you some breakfast? So I told him to go meet me. I was going to go get my car. I told him, would you meet me at this restaurant? You know where this particular restaurant is? It's just down the block here. And he goes, yeah, I do. And I said, they know me there. Tell them that you're waiting for me, and they'll seat you and all that. And so he said, yeah, I know where it is. So he went there, and I came and I met him, and turns out he wasn't looking for food. He was looking for cigarettes and loose change, but still. Um, but I wanted to get to know what his needs were. We had a meeting of fellow pastors once a week, and I brought up at the meeting about, hey, what do you think about having a homeless shelter? And it was like, well, we've been trying to get a homeless shelter together for the last 15 years, and we're waiting for somebody to donate a building. They started talking about different buildings that somebody might donate to have a homeless shelter. I'm like, huh. Really? And then that same week, I got a call from the Salvation Army, and like, hey, do you have money that you can give to put some so and so up in a motel for a couple of days? And it was a little church. We don't have a budget for that, and I wouldn't get paid much, but I gave my own money to put people in a hotel for a few days. Well, it turns out the Salvation Army is going around to all of the churches and doing that, and we were doing that on an ongoing basis. And at a certain point, we get together and go, this is this is really expensive to put people up in hotels for just a couple of days at a time. It seemed like if we pooled all of our resources, that we could actually maybe do something. And I'm like, yeah, we have these buildings that are heated 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Seems like we could do something with them, doesn't it? And uh, we started a homeless shelter. Pulled together about 7 churches to the homeless shelter. You know what I'm really doing? This is what I'm really doing. Finally, I'm alone. This is a really old church, in the middle of 65 acres, and I'm trying to have a prayer life. And for the very first time, I don't have the pressure of having to perform every 15 minutes like I did with my old job. My old job was someone had a problem every 15 minutes that I had to solve every day. It was when you have 50 people working with you and there's 1,000 contracts a year, each contract is going to have some kind of issue at some point that the broker has to solve. And I was Mr. Fix It All. As a broker, not as a priest, not as a priest. Um, I was finally there, and that's what I thought I wanted. But being alone with my thoughts and being alone with myself was a space where I was really realized that I am not who I want to be. Look what I've done. I've moved my family. away from our support, away from their families, away from where I was making good money, away from where my my spouse had a good job. I pulled my daughter out of a school that she was doing well in, and now we're going to this new place, and they're doing it because they trusted me, and all I really wanted to do was live my life as a woman. And and this is what I started thinking is uh I, I thought my family, and this I went a really deep depression. I was an extraordinarily high function depressive. Maybe the most high function I've ever seen. Um, my bishop was always calling whenever he was in this itty bitty little church. And whenever he had one of his bigger churches that would open up and they needed a strong priest, he would call me and say, go interview. You don't tell your bishop no. And I would go and I would interview. And I would come back and what my thinking is, I'm not going to go to this bigger church and this opportunity and we'll make more money. And of course my spouse is like, we got to consider going. That's a real step up. But I'm thinking, well, uproot my family again and go, and I still have the same problem sitting on my back. I'm not going to be able to go there and succeed. I mean, I didn't say that. No, I'd say, I really want to give a chance. I don't want to leave this little church. Who will take care of this church? I love my people here. And I did, and do still. I don't know what they would think of me now. I don't really see them anymore. Um, Kind of sad, really. Um, I had a homeless shelter. I became chair of the after a couple of years. I appointed someone to be the chair of the board, but I had become chairman of the board. I was in a rock band. I was lead singer of this of actually it was funny. This was hilarious. I was do you not remember the Blues Brothers?
Who?
The Blues Brothers,
Yeah.
like Jim. So I was in a Blues Brothers tribute band.
Uh,
We had the car, we had the Bluesmobile, we had a horn
so
section,
fun.
and I would go and I'd be singing and smoking and drinking and
That
singing the blues and doing
sounds so
doing
fun.
flips on stage. Ugh. I mean, I'm doing the church. The bishop calls me and asks me to be president of the standing committee for where like the standing committee would interview people who were coming in interviewing for holy orders to become a priest, and we were one of the stops along the way before they'd be recommended to the priesthood. And so we'd get their files, make sure their files were in order, they had everything that they were supposed to have, and they had their mental health checks and all of this stuff. So I was trusted with that. So I mean, all of this high level stuff, right? And all the meantime, I look in the mirror. So if I look at my computer, I look in the mirror every day and I go, "You're such a piece of crap. You're such a piece of crap. You need to die."
My goodness.
I did. So you, the reason that you're not is that you're afraid, and your family will be better off with you gone than with you transitioning, because the shame that they will feel from you transitioning will be worse than if you committed suicide. That's what I was telling myself. I looked myself in the mirror like that multiple times a day, and that would be my talk. It was demonic. I think that there was something pushing me that wanted my destruction. Um, and I planned it. I mean, I researched. I mean, I researched like what's the least painful way to go, and what has a high percentage of successful outcome. And there's websites that have that.
Or
They
suicide.
did. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even, I'm not gonna say
Right.
any more about that. But that was out there. I knew what I was going to do. At the same time, I had a side job. I was lifeguard. I was teaching swimming. Just I needed to earn. I was in this little bitty church, so I needed to earn some extra money. I mean, I think about it. Lifeguard, all this stuff going, like all this stuff going on. And if the pool was empty, I'd go in the back room and I would take a rope and throw it over one of the poles and practice cutting off my oxygen to my brain. And I practiced so that when it came time to do it, that it would be routine. And I wouldn't question it. It would just be another day. And it would just be another time. It's like this time it's for real. I practice so when it came time to do it, I wouldn't question it. It would be routine.
You had a lot of secrets.
I had a lot of secrets. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. And they weighed down on me heavy. Um, One day I did try. When I decided this is it. It was the day after my birthday, actually, and had a nice breakfast with and after people went off to work and school, it's like this is it. Today's the day. Today's the day. And I
Nobody
went and
was
started.
suspected this, would they?
I wasn't telling anybody. I didn't tell because I mean I knew if I talked about it, then it's like I'm telling people I want help or I'm wanting attention. I didn't want help. I don't want attention. I wanted to die. Um, and so I started doing it. And this is not my near death, by the way. And I started blacking out, and I'm not really going into the method of what I was doing, but let's just say I had a back door built in, and as I was getting tunnel vision, I knew that at a certain point, and just within a few, if I didn't stop in a few seconds, I would black out, and there would be no going back. And I managed to. I, I thought I want to live. I want to live. I don't want to just be alive. I want to live. Like really having a life. This is no life. This is not life. What I was living. That was not life. That was a living hell. But I put myself there. I put myself there. Seems like it'd be fantastic, right? I mean, I got them living in this beautiful place and on a farm, and I've got a band, and I'm doing good work, and all this stuff. And it was nothing was ever good enough. No matter how good a person I tried to be, I had this secret hanging over my head. I was so overcompensating. Um, I thought that my sin was so grievous that I had to become this incredible like priest that started a homeless shelter. I mean, that did nothing to make me any better at all. Didn't make up for anything. Um, and well, um, excuse me for a second. I'm gonna have to. I am. I'm on a call. I actually am on a call. Can you not bother me right now? Okay, I'll talk to you a little bit. Sorry, I have someone in my house that has a question for me, and and I wasn't quite able to. I'm not able to. I don't even. I can't help them right now. Anyway, I apologize. I apologize for that
It's okay.
kind of an interruption.
It happens.
So what I decided is I eventually did get a therapist. I didn't have a therapist. I got a therapist. Came out to my therapist. After I came out to the first person, I it was like the pressure was just was explosive. I came out to my therapist. I came out to a pastor friend. I came out to my mother. Eventually I came out to my spouse. And that didn't, that was very difficult for her, and for me. And that really, it was so shocking that our marriage never recovered.
Is
Because,
that where you
it's,
started at coming out? Was it first talking to a therapist?
yes, is the very first time I had ever come out to someone was a therapist.
And did they encourage you then come out to
They
your pastor,
said,
mother, spouse
she was like, how does that feel?
to come out? Or
Yeah, how does it feel to say that? It's would you what? See, because I said, what I told her, said, I've always wanted to, I've always wanted to live as a woman.
how
And
did that feel?
it was amazing. It was the truth. I mean, finally, see, to admit it to somebody else, I had to admit it to myself. Um, and so after about 6 meetings, I thought that I could put it aside, right? That I wouldn't I decided I didn't want to transition. I'll be fine. The time that we had to talk was enough. And that's a self-deception again. That's a self-deception again. I went to another therapist, who was a specialist in gender therapy, in Richmond, Virginia, and she actually recommended us that I start on hormone replacement therapy, and I did, and I liked it. And in 3 months, after you start hormone replacement therapy, your fat, the way you carry fat changes. My skin became soft.
Did you
I
already come out to your pastor, mother, and spouse before you started that, or were you secretly doing this?
I was I was secretly doing this.
Okay.
I did come out and share it after a period of time, because it was obvious. I thought, I want to try it, see if I like it, and I can always stop. And I did actually, I tried it and I did stop. I stopped for 6 months. Um, but then I went back on it. I did like it. I did like the changes. I thought, what's the point of this? And what I what I had decided is that I had I I had built a life where my housing was dependent on the church. If the church would find out, I would be dismissed. Um, and my family wouldn't have a place to live. So the only way out was for me to find new employment. Um, and I thought, the way that I can do this is I'll become a chaplain. And to become a chaplain, I have to take clinical pastoral education.
And you
And
have to still keep this hidden as you do that?
maybe not. No, as I if you it's all part of the story. We're gonna get in the head. Yeah. I I applied for Unit One clinical pastoral education with Riverside Hospital. That they own several, or they Riverside owns nursing homes up and down the Middle Peninsula, and I applied for a program where they would train chaplains in those localities. And so it wasn't work, it was training, in order to build up hours towards a certification. And so I did those. Well, I applied, and this was an important moment. When I applied, I was applying as a priest, so I was father so and so. And I'm in a conservative church, and they're asking me a lot of questions. My answers to the questions are fairly progressive. And so I was asked the question, how can you be so progressive and still serve such a conservative church? Something isn't right there. Something about you just doesn't seem right. It's like it's like this chaplain had ESP. And I go, you're right. And I came out to them. I told them that, I want to train and to become I want to be a chaplain, and because I want to do work that is ministry where I can live my life as the woman that I have always thought I was supposed to be. And not long after that was, thank you very much. Thank you for being so honest about your answering questions. We'll get back with you shortly. And I left and I went to the parking lot, went in my car. It was about 3 o'clock. It started pouring down rain. I hadn't turned my car on, had windshield wipers were going, and I started bawling. I thought, this is my way out. And I just blew it. By coming out like that, they'll never they'll never hire me. Who would hire me? And I cried for about 2 hours in my car. I couldn't go anywhere. I was so just I thought this is my way out, and it's not going to happen. And what am I going to do now? Um, but then a few minutes after 5, I got a call from this CPE clinical pastoral education supervisor, and said we would be honored if you would participate in our program. This is spring. This is April, May, 2017. I started getting ready for the program. I started going through orientation. I wasn't transitioning to go through this training. This training was going to be what would be my springboard to a year or two later to get to where I wanted to be. This
Were
was
you
a
dressing as a woman by that time?
priest. No,
Okay, not even
totally
at home
still
or anywhere,
nothing ever,
just doing
ever
your medication.
doing my medication. And I was out to my spouse at that point.
Yeah.
And that was
Did
really
she
hard. That was
stay?
really hard. Hmm?
Did she stay when you told her?
During that period, um, yeah, we kept it together somehow. Um, but so I started the program, and I had a blood test that came back that said I had an infection in my blood, so I was told I couldn't see patients. And I started having a pain in I'll just say lower part of my abdomen. And then I started experiencing a lot of swelling and became very, very painful. And the next week, I was in my class for chaplains, and I had I had one of them drive me to the hospital. I got sent from that hospital to another hospital. They called a urologist. I had an emergency surgery to put in a drain, um, a stent, and wasn't long after that that I got sepsis. An infection was in my blood. Um, and within a couple days, my breathing started getting harder. My lungs started filling with fluid. First, I was on oxygen, then I was on a they put a mask to try to force air into my lungs, and that wasn't working. And so what I had was a adult respiratory distress syndrome. Um, and I kept getting worse. My lungs kept filling with
Seeing you
fluid.
right
Yeah.
now. I'm not
Hmm?
seeing you I'm not seeing you on the screen right now. There you go. Thank you. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Okay, you see, yeah. All right. Um, and my lungs were filling with fluid. I started calling around, um, canceling appointments because I knew I was going to die. I had a camp coming up, a kids like archaeology camp, and I canceled it because I thought and I called around asking for a priest to come and give me last rites. And the priest that was ordained with me in Charlottesville came all the way from Charlottesville and gave me last rites. My parents were there. My wife was there. And I had a private confession with my priest, and I confessed. I said something like, "I've always wanted to live as a woman. I've dressed behind people's backs. I've lied to protect myself. Um, I have gone out in public dressed and did it in secret. Um, and the worst thing is how I've been with my spouse. Um, and so in essence, I was confessing who and what I was, my being, as mortal sin. And that's really what I believe. I believe that it wasn't just the things that I had done, but the way, even just feeling the way I did, having those thoughts. Um, and shortly after that, my aoli completely filled with blood. Um, and I drowned it. I drowned it in my own blood. And drowning isn't pleasant. I don't in any respect. But I blacked out. Kind of the tunnel vision that I had when I was trying to. I saw it again, and this time it went completely black. Went completely black, and I said, "This is it. I'm I'm I've died." And then my next thought was, I just gave a bad confession because I know if I had a chance to live again, I would live it as a woman. If I had a chance, I know that I would. And so that's it. I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell. And so that's my real last like thoughts that I could have on my own was I'm going to hell. And then it was blackness and still for some period of time. Um, then I started hearing voices. Then I started getting the experience that there were people around me, and I started going down. It's like I was being pushed down tunnels. I knew that somehow I was going down these dark tunnels. I couldn't really tell what they were, but I was going down tunnel after tunnel after tunnel after tunnel. I had a sense that there were beings on the sides of these tunnels, and I didn't know. I don't know who or what they were, but they were tall beings that were there. Um, and eventually I could see a light, right? And it grew big, and whatever I was on was put into that light. And then it was like I was launched. And I could look back and I could see my body. And then I could see the hospital that I was in. And it was like it was descending below me, like I'm going up in the sky, like I'm on this elevator that's just going up and up and up into space. And the world just got smaller and smaller. And then I started hearing these voices above me. What I heard cheering. I heard cheering. Well, that's strange. And I look up and it's like, um, I haven't heard this, and I've heard one near death experience where somebody saw the same thing. I've explained it sometimes as a spiral going up into eternity with souls at on every level of it going up. But I saw I saw a stadium that had many, many, many levels, but it was eternal going up and up. And the souls that were there, I thought, well, this is everybody. Everybody's here. And they were watching the earth. I looked down on the earth, and I guess it's because I didn't wasn't dependent on, physical eyes or a physical brain or a physical body of being in one physical place at one time. I could see the entire world and take it all in. I focused in on a few little things. One of the things that I saw bombing in Syria, and it was like a barrel bomb dropped on a hospital or school. It was collapsed. Women and children were in there, and I heard this great wailing in the heavens for this injustice, for this hate, for this loss of life. And, and what I was realizing is the the people after we die, we still interact with the things and people on Earth, and they're rooting for us to love one another and do good. And when we do, like perhaps like they did in their own lives, they're it disturbs them. Like, no, don't do what I did. Stop that. And I think trying to influence us. Maybe it does influence. Some of us really can hear that. Others can't. I kind of can. But I'm going up in these levels, up and up and up. And then I heard some words that I mean I didn't really know what this was. And I heard words that were fear not. Well, if I hear fear not, I'm pretty much going, oh, I know who this is. I know who this is. And you're not going to die. And I felt love wrap around me. And I felt amazing. I felt this just filled with this loving presence. And there was this, I saw a balcony, and this beautiful, glowing, radiant woman walked out to the balcony and was at the edge. Her head was covered. She had a crown. And you know, if you look at pictures of Mary, Queen of Heaven, it's like, okay, somebody had a near-death experience to go and paint that thing. So especially the most beautiful ones, because she had like there were people gathered around her, almost like she had an entourage. And that's what we would call it today, but I guess it was the saints. I guess I don't know. And she comes out, and heads were did a little genuflect to her, and she wasn't talking. I didn't see her talking to me directly, but I heard and felt these words. Um, don't be afraid. You're not going to die. The things that made you afraid, that people have taught you that you're evil, that what you felt was bad, that I would damn people like you to hell for just being who you are. The things that people say and do in my name make me very angry. I don't I don't damn people for that. It's, it's just that you're you will go back and you'll teach them these 6 words. The currency of eternity is love. And I just had an understanding that the thing that the only thing of value, the only thing of value is love. Love is the greatest of all of these. Faith, hope, charity, the greatest of these is love. Um, I guess it'd be faith, hope, love. Different translation. I was going back to the King James. Um, Old habits. Um, love is greater than people collect money, build buildings, monuments, get political office, try to become famous, try to have books written about them, build monuments, the Great Pyramids. Even the Great Pyramids in the course of time will be reduced to dust by the sands and winds of the Sahara. And eventually even this earth will be swallowed by the sun. It'll be nothing but stardust again. Everything we see and know will become dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It will all be gone. So why does it even matter? But love is eternal. Love is in fact goes last past our life into the next life, and the love that we have in this life we carry through to the next life, and it just expands. And that's what I knew. It was like, wow, value, love. And yeah, I guess if I want to value love, I might as well love myself.
Somebody's got to, right?
I might as well love myself. I tried so hard with everybody else, but I've failed myself. I've failed myself. And so, I knew that I would, a few more things. I knew that I would go back, that I would live as a woman, um, short soon, that I would help those who, were unloved or experienced, hatred, to let them know that I would help them know that they were loved by God. The love that they would find that I could give them would be the love of God, um, through me for them. That some people who, hate, that would get to know me, because I was placed in the church. I was in a very prominent kind of place. And when people would see how I live my life, that they would know that it's okay to love someone like me. Um, and so I was sent back to Earth, and I was in medically, I was put on a ventilator, and I was on complete life support. I mean, everything. I think they my parents counted. I had like 20 some tubes coming out of me. And, I was kind of a little bit of everywhere. There was a place where I wanted to go. It was there. Uh, I was in a room. I was in a coma for a week, medically induced, to give my lungs a chance to get pumped. So I destat it. My blood pressure drops. My blood oxygen level, everything dropped. My heart rate dropped, and I blacked out. And they were able to bring me back by getting my lungs drained to put me on a ventilator and pumping oxygen into my body and getting oxygen to my brain before I had any brain damage. Um, but I was still at risk of dying because I had damage to my heart, I had damage to one of my lungs, um, and I still had sepsis, and of course they were giving me antibiotics, whatever that they do for sepsis. Um, and while I'm in this coma, my mind had to go somewhere, so I felt myself in a body in a room, and there was a mirror on one side of the room. This is like what I'm picturing while I'm in this medically induced coma. There are speakers on either side of the mirror, and I thought, okay, so this is kind of like one of those cop shows where they can see you from the other side, you can't see them. Am I going to be interrogated? Well, no, I continuously heard a female voice that would talk to me and keep me calm. It'll be okay. Just a little bit more time, a little more time. It'll be okay. And eventually, there were two beings. Very, I can't describe them. It was very indistinct. Some things that I saw, I could describe, like the, the facial features of the woman that I saw that I said that was Mary. I can draw her. These I can't draw. I don't know what they are. But they came in, and I sat at a desk, and they presented me a new contract, a soul contract. I was being reborn, literally. I had I had rejected my old soul contract my entire life. I rejected my purpose for being because of fear. And I hated myself. I didn't love my own soul. And I didn't love my own purpose in life. Because I was afraid of what people would do to me, and I was afraid of, I'll just say it, I was afraid I would go to hell just for being me. And so here I had another chance. And I was like, well, you can go back, you can live, but you won't be living. You'll just be going about your life, pretending, but not really living. If you really want to live, you'll go back and you'll teach. You'll love other people. You'll love the unloved, and you will suffer. It's part of life. You will suffer, but you'll love yourself and you'll love others. Um, and I signed that sucker. Uh, I've been afraid of talking about that. It's weird. I've been afraid of
What did
talking
you
about that.
say? I didn't catch it.
I signed my soul contract.
Okay.
When I had the chance to renew it, I signed it. I've been afraid to talk about it, even and I haven't had opportunities like this very much. But so I came back, and um, after I came out of my coma, I had to learn to walk again, go to the bathroom, and all the stuff that you take for granted. I was too weak to be able to do. But I grew strong very quickly. By the following October, so it was June when I had, my near death. By October, I got a call from my CPE supervisor, and he invited me to come back and do the next unit of CPE. And I went, oh, God has a plan. And I started it. And I went through, it was 6 months.
So
That
what's
was
CPE?
clinical pastoral education.
Okay.
Um, and I applied for a residency, which would be for 1 year at the hospital, and I applied as Kailey. And I went and I interviewed as Kailey, and I was accepted. Kailey was accepted. Um, well, after Kailey was accepted, well, this girl had to really get her stuff in gear, because I had to legally change my name, legally change my gender. I had to work out things with my family. Um, it, but it's like everything happened in the proper time and order. My daughter graduated from high school. My spouse, we tried to do some counseling. It was it was rough. It was rough. We started looking at some apartments, and it was like, okay, well, this is I'm doing this as Kailey, and she found a job in back where she and I both grew up, paid her well. She was happy to be there. It's like everything worked out for everybody. And then June 3rd, Sunday, so I legally changed my name, legally changed my gender. I had been on hormones for several years. I had some medically necessary surgeries. Um, and I was legally a judge signed me off that I'm legally female and legally changed my name. And I um, Sunday, June 3rd, 2018, I gave a sermon and his father so and so at a little church. Then the very next day, I
Say
reported to work
father.
as Chaplain Kailey. Father.
And then the what? Then
That
the
was
next week.
that was a priest. I mean, my church still knew me as a priest. They knew that they knew I was going to the chaplaincy. I gave them notice. I quit my job, but I still was coming and filling in so that they would have somebody for Sundays. So I'd go during the week, and I'm this basically. And then Sundays I go cut my hair back, put the color on, and try to get my shirt tied on. Try to look like I'm supposed to. And I did that for several months. Um and that was 2018. 1 year after I had my near death experience. I had about 14, 15 months of chaplaincy, and I had a 2 month extension on top of the year that I had, and then I moved to Richmond. And today I've been trying to find where I'm supposed to go. I was planning on becoming a certified chaplain. Um, Things really kind of changed when COVID hit for me. I think it did for a lot of people. I ended up just working and getting a job in homeless services. I had some experience in homeless services. I did that. Um, but now I'm working for myself. I am I have started a new venture to be uh, a a death doula, um, a end of end of life care kind of um, coach, chaplain, someone to help with um, some things, just logistics when someone is dying, planning. My the kind of logo that I have, say what's our slogan. My slogan is assisting in life so the dying may experience peace. And I want to share the love that I experienced from the other side, to help people know they don't have anything to fear, and help them have peace as they depart, and their families as well. That that helped me a lot as a chaplain. My near death helped me a lot. I was around a lot of death as a chaplain, and so I'm going back to that same space, that same liminal space, um, and sharing that love, helping people do some very practical things that I think probably are very, well, just from my experience, has been very difficult to do when you're in the midst of trying to care for a loved one as they're in their last weeks of life. Um, and I would, I plan on specializing as much as I can in assisting people who were gay, lesbian, trans, particularly people who may not have a birth family, but may have a found family. That seems to be something that I'll say we tend to do. I'm lucky enough that my parents love me and accept me. Um, Not everyone has that, and for them, I'll try to stand in that gap and help advocate for their wishes, whatever they might be,
Are you
and
divorced
live up.
now?
I'm divorced.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
What's your daughter
divorced.
say? Did she accept this?
She does. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, was asking me some questions a little bit earlier, and like,
Busy.
busy. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
One thing
Um.
we have in common is my 5-year-old NDE. I was shown that my family doesn't love me.
Oh,
And then I heard God say, children are sent here to be loved. That's why he sends them
yeah.
here. And so I thought, wait a minute, that's not fair. I'm not loved. So what developed was a strong sense of injustice. And so later, after Johnny and I went to bed, and I was looking through this nursery rhyme, and it dawned on me that I was to love unloved children like me, that I was to
Yes.
have an orphanage someday. And so you're the only one I know of that's had this mission of love the unloved.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And I'm working one of these days. Maybe we'll have to come back and have a part two, because I was, do you remember I was a theater geek? I wrote plays as a kid. I did pretty well. I had some staged by professional actors. Um, and I'm working on a play about that. I want to take that experience and try to bring some life to it. Putting it in a book and having people read it, your imagination, I guess, fills in the spaces. Um, but theater brings a whole other level of imagination to it. It just will breathe some real life into it.
Somebody wrote
Um,
my screenplay recently and they mailed it to me. I was so excited to get it. I couldn't get past the first page because it's lies. They changed everything that was said and done, like this ghost writing or something. That was not the purpose of this. This was my memoir, a true story, word for word, and it was trash. I didn't want lies. I wanted the
yeah,
truth. I was like, what's wrong with the true story? The true story holds the abuse and the miracles and everything. What's these lies? That's garbage. That's who
yeah.
disappointed.
It's like, okay, if I write that and I have, like, when I went to that church on that Easter Sunday and I put that in there, what'll happen to that? That probably won't make it through, will it? I
What do
don't
you mean?
know. Who knows? Oh, the lady who died during a service
Yeah.
and came back. And I wonder what'll happen with those parts of the story. Uh, I, I'm actually so here's I'll give a little preview. I'm gonna so I'm starting it out as having a woman reading a storybook to a child, and what the story as the child is going to bed, and the storybook is just a little bit of the life. See, the child is a preborn is a preborn soul, and the story is just a piece of the soul contract that describes this little piece of life, and the child can decide to take it or not take it. And then when I re-sign it, the fine child Holly was like, actually the person that's living there isn't accepting that child. And then after God picks, this person up and goes, "Hey, hey, I've been studying in these times for years. Is anybody home?" They go, uh, oh, oh, really? Thank you so much. And I came back and I did it. I did it. Oh my God. It's been really hard. It's been really hard. It hasn't made for perfect. It's made for a very, very imperfect life. Um, but
What's your
I
life
love
like
my
now?
but I love
Yeah.
myself.
Uh-huh.
I love myself, and I'm starting this part of this really exciting journey. And whatever it is, I'll learn from it, and it'll be okay. I've already been to the other side, and it's fine. Whatever happens here, it's fine.
Can I ask, have you found love? I mean, have you found a partner?
I am I'm open to finding someone. I had been really seeking. Um, and I think if it's something that's going to happen, it'll happen for me. But I don't think the seeking will make it happen. And so it I even decided that if my life is as if I were religious. I'm not particularly, actually. Um, that would still be okay. Because I'm finding meaning in other, and I'm finding meaning without my see. Before, all my meaning was based on what other people thought about what my perception of what I thought other people thought about me. And I'm trying to change. I've really been work. This is the second half of my life is about me loving myself and creating my own meaning, and not creating a meaning that I think other people want me to get out of life. Um, so it's very different. And I haven't always succeeded at that. And I'm still working on it. And for right now, um, it it really is not that big a deal about whether I find an external love to myself or not, because I have me, and I have, this light and life and love that I know loves me forever.
So
That
I live in
binds
the
us, makes us
country
one.
in Southeast Ohio. So forgive me, I don't know how these things work. So are you looking for a husband? Like if that would be, is that how it works? I don't know. Is that how it works? Now that you're
Girl,
female, I
I
mean,
that's I would love to find someone I would love to grow old with someone, and for us to love one another
like
and
male
support one
or
another.
female. I mean, I don't know. I
I
don't know.
am I tend to when I'm asked those, yeah, you make it this is okay. Now I'm feeling like I'm on Oprah.
No.
When I I wasn't thinking about talking about that. Um, I tell people that I'm um pansexual, which means that I will love someone despite their gender. Um, but I found I like men. I really do. I really do. I really do. I think that I'm like 90%. This will make some people scratch their heads. I'm like heterosexual female now.
Okay.
If that's, I mean, really, that's just from experience. That's what I found. But it'll take someone really special to love me and to um for my past to not be a hindrance to that. And
Because I mean, you've had surgery to be female, so I mean,
we're on YouTube. We're not going about all of that. I had some stuff that was not that I said was medically necessary, and
okay,
describing exactly what that was, I won't get into.
okay.
But I've had some even physical relationships that have been really wonderful, but they just um didn't pan out to be more than that. Not long term, and it just ends up not being satisfying. And so I'm looking really for a spiritual connection. I think that's really what I would love. But if but I have very strong spiritual connections otherwise, without having to be dependent on that elsewhere. So I don't know. I'm
Your
open.
screen's black
Uh,
again. I don't know. Something happened again.
do you
There
see
we
me
go.
now?
Yeah, I
Okay.
see you now.
I don't know if it's a timeout thing or what that. You know what I think some of it is that it buffers, and it's that background there,
Oh, I
because I
think
know
they
it takes a
do.
certain amount. Yeah, like if I would turn that off, um, then just do that,
See
and
if
you
it
see
takes care of it.
you see a yellow door, probably wouldn't happen at all. But I
Okay.
really liked that
It was pretty.
heart-shaped
I like your
tree. It was
yellow wall
pretty.
too. I like yellow.
And now I'm just all
You're fine.
there's so much light that it just kind of now, yeah,
Bright
well,
for you.
this is the heavenly, there's the door. Oh, do you know what my name means, Kailey?
Uh-uh.
See
Oh,
my
I did read
earrings?
that and I forget now.
Kailey is Gaelic for keeper of the keys.
Yeah, okay. I remember reading that on your
S-
bio now.
So man, fine, but ultimately I'm in control of my own destiny. I'm the one who will open or close the door. That's up that's up to me and not someone else.
So you're starting your own business now with this, but
Correct.
you're no longer chaplain. Is that
I'm
correct?
not I'm not a chaplain. No, I'm not a chaplain. I will provide people spiritual care, interfaith, really. My spirituality has changed quite a bit. I attend church, Episcopal church. Um, but something it was a long story. I started practicing Buddhism. I One of the first books I checked out of the library was kind of sounds stupid, but it was Zen Buddhism for Dummies.
Uh-huh.
Zen Buddhism for Dummies, and I read that. But I met a lovely woman who is Buddhist at a restaurant that she and her husband owned, and it was like in Yorktown, and they invited me to their Buddhist meeting, like how they worship, and I started practicing with them, and I practiced every week, and I still do. And Buddhism, the idea of unity has really expanded my view of what um in scripture, what the Christ intended, and say, he is sent by the Father to bring people into him, so that he brings them into the Father, that they may be one. That the love that we have for one another makes us a unity. It's like we become part of the divine through our love, and we're already loved, and we're already in the image of the divinity. So we already have that divinity that we all share. It's a matter, do we realize that? Are we open? Are we open to that? And I want to be open and live it, and share that love. And this is one of my first steps, really, Peggy. I'm very thankful. I've told my stories to a few individuals, not in a public setting. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that. I put it out there. I put it
It's
out
very
there.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it?
Like I said early on, I think you could be a stand-up comic. I mean, and tell your story because you're hilarious. Can I ask
I
you?
yes.
Can I ask you your opinion? And you don't have to discuss it. I'm just really curious. I don't have any other trans people
No.
to ask. What do you think about the Bud Light controversy?
Oh, people making such a big deal out of. I mean, this is a one really gorgeous gal by the way, um, who has she had just a few thousand followers, and she talks about a beer, and they put her picture on it, and then all of a sudden she's getting so much hate. Well, I'll tell you what, they're selling some beer because of that, because people are buying that beer and going and shooting it and, and
I
and showing their hate for that beer
think I read
by
like
buying the beer,
23
and just
billion so far they've lost.
it's really we so I've the transgender people have been made into a scapegoat. Um, the things that are attributed to people who are transgender are things like grooming, and
Like what?
we're being
Grooming? What'd you say?
grooming. Like, can you hear me? Like,
Yeah. You think they're
can,
being used for grooming?
no, we're being accused of it.
Oh,
We're
oh.
being accused of it politically. Um, and
Is it trans grooming or is it people using you to groom? I don't know.
no. Oh my God, this is going to go off the rails if I'm not
Because
very if I'm not very
because it's okay.
if I'm not very succinct and careful. No, are being accused of it in some political spheres in order to make political gains. It's being made, trans people have become a culture war issue. Um, and it's very sad because the people like me, we're trying to live our lives the best we can. And we are not here to do any harm or care really sexually about other people. We're just trying to be ourselves.
What do you
And
think about? Oh, go ahead. I'll just finish.
no, yeah,
Oh,
so there's whole sets of laws that will deny healthcare, not just to youth, but to adults as well. That's progressed. Some of the bathroom laws are incredibly damaging. And there's just fear mongering about, oh, a man in a dress going to the women's room, wanting to take advantage of girls and women. And I mean, really, the people that have been going and taking advantage of young people, the pedophiles, really very frequently turn out to be of a conservative bent, and they're some of and they are hate mongers themselves. Whenever someone speaks too much about something, I wonder, what are they trying? What are you trying to cover up? And
what?
why do you hate us so much? That doesn't the data doesn't bear the argument they're trying to make. And
Right.
that's yeah.
What do you think about the trans going to the schools doing those strip shows in front of the children?
My expectation is that's a incredibly rare. No, nobody's doing a strip show. Oh my
Oh yeah,
God.
I have seen the YouTube videos. Yeah, they're dressed in their whole
Okay, so
flags and
there are drag queens that went and read some stories. Um, I wasn't there, and I don't watch TV. So
oh, I
but I'm
see
kind of
it
missing
all.
out a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit
it's
on
everywhere.
that.
Like they like open
But
their legs right in front of the children's faces and stuff, and doing the like adult shows in these elementary schools. And so I
yeah,
think that made the Bud Light thing, coming after that, after in the schools, and then on their beer. I think it's just like set people over the top. Like, okay, they're doing um shoot, I can't think of the word, their peaceful protests through not buying the beer because of a series of trans public displays. So I guess public displays, that's the
okay.
right word.
I think something that's probably a few outliers that have been made public and because the media makes everything available everywhere, and things get really blown up to be really, really, really big. Yeah, I mean that's not I would not be in favor of anyone doing anything that's explicit to children, or would affect what they think about sexuality or gender at a young age. Um, but then again, if someone's in their teens and their parents consent to it, and like myself, if I had the opportunity to sort hormones when I was a teenager, if the world had such a bent to it, it would have saved me a lot of pain during my life, and I would have had
You
led a
don't think
completely
that's too
different life.
young? Like maybe they'll
Uh,
grow out of it. Maybe they'll
they
regret
people
it.
don't that when it's the 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 data doesn't bear out that people change their minds like that. Um, it
I
just
had Jeffrey
doesn't.
McCall on a year ago. Maybe you heard of
Okay,
Jeffrey McCall, and he
I don't
ended
know
up.
Jeffrey McCall.
Oh,
No.
okay, I didn't know. I mean, met him on Facebook, and within an hour, he was on the show, and he had this spiritual experience, and he lived as Scarlet as a female. He was a
Okay.
male college professor, and then he lived as
Okay.
Scarlet, and he was like suicidal and all this stuff, and he had this like come to Jesus moment, and he became a minister, and he was um just getting really famous, and he was with the Duck Dynasty people and everything, and he was like high in demand. He was speaking in all these churches, and then here recently he decided to go back to Scarlet.
Hmm.
And so like I don't know how to talk to Scarlet. Jeffrey was my friend. I don't know how to talk to Scarlet. And then all the trans community was like on his wall, just being so mean to everybody that would say anything. All And so it played out really badly. But he had been on that Pray Away show, and they hated him because he was saying, that you could change. You don't have to stay trans if you decide not to be trans. And he lost all his trans friends, or all his friends and everything, when he became straight, and now he's back to Scarlet. And so I don't know.
Judging from my own experience, I couldn't have been someone else. I am who I am, and I've been who I am my entire life. And no matter how diligently I prayed, I didn't, that essence who I was never changed. And it's not going to. At this point, I don't know what purpose I would serve anyway. I'm just here being myself, I'm not seeking anything, you know? And I'm not trying to make more people come out. But then again, if someone is afraid that, I mean, certainly someone might be afraid that someone might show up at the door and beat them up, or, assault them, in a public space. That could happen to me. That's very realistic. Um, and by being on video and talking about these issues very frankly, I've opened myself up to that possibility.
And I do
Um,
too. I opened myself up when I had Jeffrey on. I was, my
yeah,
husband and I both were getting death threats through Facebook.
I've already had death threats.
Assumed that we were anti whatever because he had been Scarlet and he had his Jesus moment, and now he's not. And then I'm like, what did we do? I just let him tell a story, just like I let you have you tell your
Yeah,
story.
I had my Jesus moment, and it is I love you. It's okay for you to love yourself.
And I have said several times, in fact, I said it recently again, that when I come out about having an NDE, I said, this must be what gays feel like when they come out of the closet. Because I was an investigator, a social worker, a therapeutic foster, all these things. And I'm going to come out as crazy when I start saying, I did have NDEs. I did have these experiences. And I know I'm going to look crazy. I know people are going to call me a liar. I'm going to lose all credibility, And I said, this must be what it feels like. I was scared to death to go to an IONS group, because I even called my sons, and I'm like, I'm going to go to this IONS group, and it's, near Columbus, Ohio, in their area. And I'm like, am I going to embarrass you? They're like, what are you talking about? Because I thought, I'm going to come out as a cuckoo. And I don't want to be cuckoo. I just want to tell the
you don't
truth.
want to be, you don't
Keep
want to
us
be
out.
cuckoo. Yeah,
Right.
I didn't want people to, and still don't want people to think that, but ultimately, who who decides that? They decide that
Right.
themselves. You don't.
Yeah. And we can be hated for a million different reasons. So add cuckoo to the list,
Yeah,
as long as we feel we're
yeah.
living our truth. And it sounds like you've always felt this way since you were born. Or was it this
I've
new
always
thing? Like, hey, everybody's
no.
doing it. I'm gonna do that too.
Yeah, you probably know Dr. Bruce Grayson.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, is Dr. Bruce Grayson cuckoo?
I don't think anybody thinks he's cuckoo.
No. So really, an NDEs is become a very common experience as we as medical as medicine advances, we learn that what we think is medical death is now occurring at later and later and later stages, and we're able to bring people back to life now when we weren't able to, like being able to save me basically, after mine is like it's like after a drowning. This is a, I wasn't underwater, but I was under blood.
Yeah, you drowned. The
Yeah, I drowned,
sense.
and it's the same thing. Um, and okay, I mean that was one of that's CPR did that, right? Um, and now things have advanced far past that. And people had these experiences of the light, of feeling love, of meeting ancestors, of having a sense of unity with one another and with God and with the cosmos. Not Some people experience that, and it reinforces. Well, they become very religious, but some don't. I'm kind of in this middle lane, to where my um what I thought to be correct was very conservative, and has shifted to be more actually very very open. I haven't really talked about all of that here because we just haven't had time. I mean, it's just it's a lot to it, and that's a whole other story. I think what we would perceive as God is much greater than what mankind can describe it to be. And even what we say we've received or think we've received in terms of scripture, no matter what the religious tradition may be, doesn't hold the complete truth of what's really there. It's meeting mankind where we are at that time, like in our near-death experiences. I think we're met where we need to be at that time. I needed a female presence. A hyper masculine Jesus coming to me at that time might not have been quite the thing or my ancestors coming to me may not have been quite the thing for me to experience. What I experienced was something that helped me to relax and know that I was loved by God. Someone else, it may be angelic, it may be their ancestors, it may be seeing the face of Jesus, um, or the Buddha. It could be anything. Um, and we are met by the divine where we need the divine to be, on the other side, and that's a pretty consistent um story, I think, as you go through these. And then some people have dramatically different lives after the fact. I have a brand spanking new life that I'm still working my way through, with an expectation of living out, this calling. But
I
I'll
don't know about
keep.
trans, but it seems to me that maybe some gays, a lot of gays are gay because they were sexually abused as children. And that, say Ellen, for example, she says she was sexually abused and she never wanted one of those things near her again. And I have a cousin that was sexually abused by my brothers, and he says, I'm not saying that they're the reason that I'm gay, because one raped him, was brutal, and he hates him, and the other he said was tender with him. But either way, they both my brothers sexually abused children. But it's, and so I've always wondered, you know, what if he, and I think he wondered too, would he be gay if he hadn't been sexually abused as a child? And the ones I have talked to, there seems to be a lot of sexual abuse as children for homosexuals. Am I being prejudiced in thinking that?
I can tell you what. So having worked as a pastor and met many people and heard many confessions, is that a far higher percentage of people are abused or sexually abused than ever admit it or are ever prosecuted. It seems like there's an overwhelming number of cases out there. Well, what's actually reported is just the tip of the iceberg of what actually occurs. I would venture to say that from the number of women that I've met and the confessions that I've heard, that about half have experienced some form of abuse, sexual or otherwise. And I don't know why it would be that much different for men. And there will be some percentage of those, one way or another, who will work through their trauma in different ways. But I do not believe that people who are gay or trans, by and large, are the way they are because of an abusive experience. It may be some person's way of working it out. See, I've studied family systems theory, and things like abuse tend to run in families. They do run in families, and it's a very difficult cycle to break. And I am, I guess, one of the lucky ones that come from a loving family that had nothing like that. But pretty much loving support on both sides of my grandparents and my parents and my aunts and uncles, and compared to what I have heard in hospitals and in churches, um, it's a lot of pain out there. It's a lot of hurt. And I think people will try to deal with it in different kinds of ways. Some of them destructive, some of them maybe being against their essence of who they are. And why they work it out that way, I don't know. I don't know.
I
Um,
might have watched
but
Bohemian Rhapsody, which I love that movie. I watched it so many times. I kept thinking, I know he was sexually abused as a child. I bet he was in that school he was in. And later on, I heard an interview, and he was abused by a teacher, sexually abused.
would that have made a difference of who Freddie Mercury was ultimately? I mean, say a high percentage of men, or some percentage of men are experience some kind of abuse. Some percentage of them were gay anyway, even before or not before they were abused, and would have turned out to be gay men, abuse or no abuse. And so I don't know. I mean, I can't make that connection, Peggy. It's just not.
Okay, I was just curious on your take on it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't make that connection. For one thing, that's not my experience. That's not mine at all. It doesn't.
Right, I see that.
And in my experience is that having, um, you know, not being a therapist, but being in clergy and chaplain, I've still met many hundreds of people and heard, their pains. And everybody, the majority of people have some kind of pain and trauma. And and the results of that manifests itself in many different ways. And whether there's a correlation, well, maybe there's a correlation. That would be something to research in family systems theory. I don't think it's a cause and effect that this is what this is, gay or trans, that, that's that this cause leads to that effect. Like 100% of the time.
Right, not 100%, but
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
curious.
a lot of the people that were abused anyway were already the way they were. Um,
I have one more
so I don't.
question because I don't have anybody else to ask.
Okay,
What?
and yeah,
Okay.
these have really been hard. These are not ones that I'd even thought of. But I,
Okay.
you know, I hope I do it. I hope I do it justice, really.
And it's not about you, it's just, what do
Okay.
you think about this age fluid?
Oh, so there is a okay, I'm gonna do I'm gonna look up something really quick. It's like
And so for anybody listening who don't know, my understanding of it is, say I'm 62 years old, but I'm 6 years old, and I shouldn't be able to marry legally a 6 year old and it not be child abuse because I am actually 6 years old.
that's sounds like mental illness. How do you make the distinction on there? Well, you know what? I don't have any desire to uh I'd like to find a partner within like 5 or 10 years, about 10 years of my age. Where we shade similar life experiences. That's just gross. I mean, you go to almost any culture and they'll know what's right and what's wrong. And I think most modern cultures, maybe not all, um, most modern cultures reject that. And ours rejects that as it should. That doesn't make any sense. And I think relating that um, to gender is like, okay, you know, I'm not going to go, oh, I'm a horse. There's a book that I'll recommend, and it is called Evolution's Rainbow. Evolution's Rainbow is written by a biologist who just happens to be transgender. And is also a Christian. And so this is someone who has had to look at gender from a faith perspective and also from a biological perspective. It's about an 800-page book, and it goes through biology from through evolution, but also from looking from single cell um, uh, um, organisms all the way up to complex organisms like human beings. And it turns out that gender is fluid per se in the majority of organisms. That it's not. There are some behaviors in some organisms that for if in humans we would describe that as feminine, yet a male seahorse will carry the eggs of his babies until they're born. So they're fertilized in the female, deposited in the male, and then it gives birth. There are many organisms that will, if there's not enough, say you have a male and there's not enough females for them to mate with, they'll spontaneously change to female so that they'll have another organism to breed with. Um, and even in when you get to people, there's cultures from throughout time where there have been, say, even with American Indians, where there were people who were identified as two spirits, where they were a trans, where they would be a male who would dress and live as a woman, and they took on kind of a wise person in within that community and was respected. They're more shamanistic, I think. Um, and that's been true of many cultures. And our XY chromosomes, it turns out that there's many variations of those, and it's not just the binary. And intersex is very common. If you can have, in fact, it's I had the stat on it, and I don't remember it. It's in the book, so you can read the book. Um, that intersex is common enough that it's easy for me to think and believe that look how complicated the brain is. If you can have an intersex body, isn't the brain part of the body? Why isn't it possible to have an intersex brain and be born with that? And then if a person is such, well, do you need to fix them? What is there to be fixed? Really nothing to be fixed. They are who they are who they are. So um I I think that someone can be born intersex, and if they have are intersex in their brain and they're somewhere in the middle. I mean, there's more or less masculine women, tomboys. There's more effeminate men, some of whom actually are heterosexual, even though they might talk like this and feel like that, until they get married and they have children. They've got to be gay. Oh no, I'm not gay. What are you talking about? I got these 6 kids running around. I'm not gay. I love my wife. Are they covering it up? What? Well, why would they be like this? There are some of both. And
Oh, my
why
son
isn't
and I was
that
going to
okay?
dinner
Why
and
isn't
we're
that
like,
okay?
is man, woman? I don't know. What is that? I don't know. I mean,
And
sometimes we really don't
and
know.
why are they and they are why should it bother us?
I
I
mean,
mean,
we're just like,
if they are abusing us, convict them of the abuse. But we shouldn't assume the abuse, right? That's Majority Report. Do you remember the book? Do you remember have you seen the movie Majority Reports? Okay, it's a Tom Cruise movie, so I recommend it. Actually, it's a very good science fiction movie. Where they would, there were, could well in the book, it's a computer that would predict a crime before it would occur, and then the police would go and arrest the person before they committed the crime.
oh yeah,
And right, and in the movie, it's people who have some psychic ability. They're precogs, they call them precognition, and they would um predict a murder. But these 3 precogs had to agree that this murder was going to occur and this person was going to do it. Um, but they always had to agree on it. And so then they would go arrest the person who was going to commit that murder, and they eliminated murder and virtually eliminated crime. Well, that's not the way things are. Um, Going and saying that someone is going to commit a certain crime because they're black or they're white or they're Christian or they're Jew or they're male or they're female or they're trans or they're cisgender, um, that's bigotry, plain and simple. That is creating a scapegoat. And if you're going to go and treat that person differently, if you're going to make them essentially illegal, that's that's what fascists in Germany did with Jews, with gays, with
yeah.
Roma,
We
and
have a black grandson, and we have to worry now that he's almost 14. What is he going to be mistaken for a crime member and get shot? Are the teachers going to discriminate? They won't move down where we live because this is a racist area, and I don't blame them. And in fact, my first son, he married a girl, had a baby that in this area they would call her black, but she's not. She's like from her dad's from like the islands, and so, but they consider that black, because they don't know any different between shades or whatever. And so I told her, I wouldn't put her in school down here. And so she didn't. She put her in a different school because I said they'll discriminate against her. I mean, we had a black female teacher, and a racist family who has the Ku Klux Klan stuff in their yard all the time. They had their daughter get with her friends and lie about her and run around the school. I've known
yeah.
people years ago that had crosses burnt in their yard. We live in a racist area, and
So apply that to me. I mean, really.
well, and
Um,
apply that to me.
I
Apply
mean,
that to
yeah,
everyone.
apply
I
that to
get
go ahead,
discriminated for
go ahead,
being
exactly.
conservative pro-life.
If you're gonna hate somebody because of who they are, that's evil.
Yeah,
That's
but
say
see, but
that's
I
satanic.
I just I guess I'm trying to make the point now that I think of it, and I do on those shows is I get discriminated against by the NDE community because I'm conservative and pro-life. I mean, I have been told you've got a choice. You be this or get out. You cannot be in leadership. And I thought, well, if I was trans, if I was gay, if it was because I was black or because I was
I
Jewish,
see.
all these other things, I would have a rally of support. But because I'm Christian, conservative, pro life, there's no wraparound services here, you know. I don't have a
Okay,
flag. I don't have a. I don't have a.
I
You
see
know.
that. Okay. Yeah, and so you get pushed back for that. And
But we can sit here and have a conversation. Like, I mean, I love your
yeah,
story.
I
I
know.
just
When
love you to death,
and
I applaud you for being you.
and maybe we would, because it actually it could be very productive. Because look at where I came from. Look at my
Mhm.
background. I don't
Mhm.
just change like that.
Right.
On a dime. I mean, it seemed like the gender I didn't change on a dime, because this has been who I am for 50 years, 53 years. Um, but in terms of a lot of my beliefs, some of them have changed because of my experience and meeting something that's transcendent and larger than me, and that once my love is expanding my ideas of who I can love, and I need to love everyone, and to the point that I my need is to love people who would hate me, okay? Because they need to know that they're loved, even they're loved by God. They're not hated for their hatred.
Are you discriminated at where you live? I mean, like in the store or
I'm
wherever.
not, I mean, nobody knows. I live and function in the world 100% as a woman.
I
I'm
mean, when
not
they hear your
questioned.
voice, do they know? Like when you called me, I seen your name was Kailey.
Okay.
When you called me,
Yeah.
immediately I knew you were a man because I
When
knew
people
your
see
voice.
me, when they see me and they get my voice, I don't, like if I go through a drive-through, sometimes I'll get
Okay.
that. And you know, sometimes I've had friends that are transgender that really upsets them. I'm like, okay, I don't care
What upsets them?
that they're misgendered when they're going through a drive-through, and they like in a
Oh,
restaurant,
oh.
fast food. They go, and I'll have a Big Mac with fries. I'll have a number six. I'll have two tacos and enchilada.
So what would you
And
do if you went to a gym? Would you go to the female or would you go to the male?
I do.
You go to what? What do you go to?
You go to I go through the women's locker room. I go to women's bathrooms. I am a woman. I,
Nobody notices.
I have never
Nobody.
had any problem and suffer.
Okay. Well, there's just something in the news recently, but this guy, his manhood was hanging out and he was peeking through the stalls and he filed some lawsuit because they're discriminating, telling you can't come back. And my husband and I were like, hey, if a female was peeking under these stalls, she would be thrown out too.
Yeah.
You just don't go peeking in stalls on
If you
people.
just don't, you see, you don't do that. Because I'm I'm there to go and use the bathroom. Everybody's got to do that. Not looking at anybody. I go in, whatever needs to get done gets done, and we go. Um, that's normal, you know. If I'm going to swim at the Y, maybe I'll get thrown out now. I don't know. Could happen.
Why would you
Um,
get thrown out?
shouldn't be, but I shouldn't be, because I'm not. I
Oh,
mean, I'm not publicly out in that sphere, right? Do you understand? I don't
but
go,
if you went swimming, they wouldn't know
no,
you're not
I'm
female.
not, haven't been questioned about it. I haven't had any reason to.
Okay. I'm
I
just
have a
curious.
community of people that I love and I talk to, and I try to encourage, because there's a lot of abuse. I mean, there is, you know, if you're more out when you're young, there are tendencies that you receive more abuse, um, bullied, like I had some of, not very much of, because I adapted very quickly. I adapted very quickly and successfully. Um,
What was
as
that
living in,
like when you were going as a man as a pastor and then
yeah,
going as a woman? I mean, what was that like?
it was very sad. I
I
was very
imagine you were
sad.
happy when you were the female, but then we had to be a male. I imagine that felt very
I was out of there
hard.
as fast as I could, because frankly, it was a deception. It was a deception. I knew that.
I know
I
you
didn't
couldn't
want.
imagine it.
I didn't want to do it. I was trying to be of help.
I know you can imagine this probably is the same thing, even similar, but when I was social worker, counselor and stuff, you dress up nice, you wear the nice shoes and your hair and makeup.
Yeah.
And then I started working on the pipeline with my husband. I had to wear men's clothes, boots, jackets, pull my hair
You
back in
you
this hat. I looked awful. and I had to work like a man, and I was expected to carry my load like a man. And I felt trans.
You wore clothes that were appropriate to the work. No, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
if
I
I
missed being a woman. I couldn't wait to get home and shower and let my hair down and wear something pink or whatever, you know.
yeah,
I wanted my identity back. I didn't like people mistook me for a man sometimes. Like, oh, that's a
okay.
woman. I didn't know it was a woman. Like, yeah. I didn't like it. So
I probably wouldn't like working on the gas, in that either. But that's why I've made the choices I did in life to pursue humanities, for
mhm.
instance.
I suppose part of
Or
me liked it.
business.
Part of me liked being manly, like strong. Like I could throw these skids. Like I was getting strong muscles, and I started doing men's work, and I just feel a pride. And then I felt really weird when this young pretty girl come through, and all my coworkers are whistling stuff, and I'm like, okay, now I feel weird. Now I feel like, where's my hair? I can't be standing here
Hey,
when these guys are whistling. Yeah.
we're in an age where women can do most all the jobs that men can do, and why not? And if something requires moving a lot of weight, it's why we have forklifts. It's why we have dollies. It's why we have technology to move things around. We don't have to just use brute force to move things around anymore. And the things that we have to, like the weights that I see on job applications are like pretty universally it's 50 pounds. That seems to be
Yeah.
the limit because even a man.
So how you want to end this up? We're going positive notes we can leave on.
Well, I think that there should be a positive note. I think the positive note is that we're all in different places um, in this life. Um, that our lives don't end when this life is over. That we should have enough humility to understand that we don't understand all of existence, including what's next, or even everything about the one where we are, and to leave room for everybody to be able to live their lives without trying to impose our life upon them. And if you're like someone like I was living in fear, get out of the fear and really try to live your best life. Um, Talk to me if you need support. I will love you if you haven't found that somewhere else. Um, if you're someone who doesn't agree with me, I know you're going to go, well, you chose a lifestyle. No, I chose to love myself and allow myself to be who I know myself to be. Um, and I've made peace with my God on that, and I'm doing nothing to harm anyone. So let me live my life, and other people that honestly can say the same thing, let them live their lives. Um, I think that's good. And if you're near your end of life, um, don't fear what's next. Um, I think there may be people who have something to work through on the next life. I think I saw a little bit of that, and there are some near-death experiencers who've even had that experience where they've had some have come back because they have something that they have to work through. Some have probably some things to work through in the next life, but I think they have the capacity to be able to work through that and still um, be able to live in a loving space. So my best advice is always to love one another, to love yourself. Um, Whether you believe in any kind of a transcendent being, whether you believe in an afterlife or whatever, just for the sake of humanity and for our continued existence, um, we have to be able to work with one another. And the best starting place I know for that is um, to love each other and um, work through our differences. I mean, Peggy, as we were going through our calls, it's um, we're not in the same place on all things, I'm sure. And I'm, you know, I'm not going to be in the same space as every progressive. Just because I'm transgender doesn't mean that, everything out there that shows up that I'm supposed to be in support of, well, I'm 53. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I go, oh, I don't, whoa, that's a lot. You know, I'll have that reaction too. And does that make me bigoted if I have that reaction? I think not if I'm humble enough to step back and try to understand. I may or may not understand. But if I don't impose my will on that other person, um, then it's okay. Now, if they're imposing their will on someone else or they're doing harm, they need to be stopped. Yeah. Do no harm is part of the golden rule. Part of love is you don't hurt someone else. You don't do someone else without their consent. Um, if physical touching, um, anything like that is just not. It's uh, it's evil. I'll allow that. Someone going out their business with their life. That's not evil. That's not evil. That's just them being themselves, just like any of the rest of us are. So allow us to live. Allow me to live. Allow, give some benefit of the doubt. And somebody fails, well, we have a legal system for that, and let's let it work. I think for the most part, legal system doesn't work because the vast majority of people that I know that have been abused, um, there was never any justice. Even for the ones that were turned in, the majority of those have been overlooked. And I know of very many close cases to my heart that I know of that were completely just swept under the rug, and that makes I mean it makes me angry. It does because abuse continues, but trans and LGBT is not about abuse. It's about identity. It's about identity. And conflating, I think, and conflating the two all the time is um, is a misunderstanding. I think, and uh, thanks for being open to receiving that because you have. I mean, you have whether you agree or understand that you've at least listened to that. And go back and do some research on it and see what you think, and then make an educated decision for yourself on that. We can still be friends, you know. If I'd have you over, we can have a barbecue. I would break bread with you and not have a problem with it. We should be able to do that. If you need to use this bathroom in my house, I'm not going to tell you no.
I say
So
you should be a stand-up
it's,
comedian, but
it's
you can take this on the road.
and that's the thing. All of this becomes so trivial when you face it with when you look at these things with the eye of eternity. It's completely trivial, and when compared to life and death, it means nothing. It's done and over. Period. And you're on the other side, and that's what you're going to be rooting for the people on this side. Is going, hey, relax, take a deep breath. It'll be okay. You know, let them live, love them, spend some time, get to know them. Um, you know, take your KKK robe off and go to a bar, go to a drag show. You might enjoy it. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's not everybody. That's not going to be everybody's thing. I mean, that's some people's. Some people enjoy that. It's not a place. It's not a place for 8-year-olds. I mean, I guess there could be ones that are PG. There's lots of entertainment out there that's really really racy that kids are going to find, and parents should take responsibility for that too. I mean, this, just going and pegging it on one group of folks, is a misapplication of the law. In my opinion, not being someone who is an attorney, but I'm reasonably intelligent enough to be able to make that conclusion, and I will vote and act accordingly, and stick up for myself and people like myself. That's one reason I'm here, is to be an advocate, and I will be a strong advocate. Um, but also one that's open mind, and will listen to all sides and weigh in. And I think that's the way we all should be. Live in love, live in reason. That's pretty good. That's a pretty. I mean, it's hard to do much better as a human being. You think,
Yep.
Peggy?
When I seen all that rioting on the news, I thought, can you imagine how much fun we all could have? We get along. This could be music in the streets and dancing in the streets and picnics, and we could do that and have fun. This fighting and burning stuff and hurting people and assault, and there's better ways of spending your time.
Plus, we have a lot of work to do. There's a world to save. It's burning. Um, and at least not try. I mean, if you come from even from a Judeo-Christian tradition, we were left with a garden to tend, so to speak, and we're digging everything out of it we can and consuming it and not putting it back in its place. And then the expectation is, oh well, Jesus is coming soon, and he'll fix it all. I may have left a mess of it. I can keep making a mess of it because he'll fix it. Doesn't really matter. Then he comes back and be like, why did you let the world burn when you had a beautiful oasis? You had a beautiful garden. You had a blue marble that was unique in the universe, and you destroyed it. I didn't create the world to be destroyed by you, but Lord, you were going to come back and fix it. And we didn't like those other people, and so we
That's
couldn't
what
get
I sent you for,
along.
you fool.
We couldn't get along. We couldn't get along. We wanted their land. They wanted our land. Yeah, we got to get over ourselves. We got to get over our egos. Really, that's
Let
huge.
it go.
I
Let
mean,
it go.
I think part of what I had before was my ego as a priest. I mean, think of the status that I had in my community, right? And I gave that up for um whatever this. I don't think I'm any lower personally. I care for myself. I love myself where I didn't really before. But if I was to go back to the same community, some people would, be accepting of me, but others would think, yeah, you're a perversion.
Well,
You're a
you gave
perversion.
up the real estate business that was going to be handed to you for preaching, and then you gave up preaching to be a woman, so to speak,
I
not
gave up
necessarily.
preaching for a different call, but I'm still a minister.
Right.
I am forever I am ever
But I mean, you could have stayed a man preaching and lived suicidal till
I
the end
would
of all this
never have been
eternity.
I would never have been able to reach an audience that I'm called to. That's me. Me. I wouldn't have been effective. I wouldn't have been an effective minister for myself. You know? So for me to be effective, I have to be who I am. And
And you could
uh,
reach people that the guy minister you were couldn't have.
I would never reach. And there are messages that I had there that just wouldn't be heard. It wouldn't be
Well,
heard.
thank you for your time. It's been very enlightening, informative, and eye-opening.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think this was part of that mission. And there will be people from many perspectives that'll
listen to this, and hopefully will learn to love themselves, or if they have, some kind of burning bile in their heart for people like me, they'll go, that's somebody I might be able to go to hang out with and be okay with. I mean, I like everything about it, but they're an okay person. Maybe they think I think I could love a person like that and be, a brother sister in Christ. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I at least have to put it out there, and then let whatever's going to happen, trust
Yes.
it that it's going to the right people, and it'll do the right things.
And I
And I'll
think
end it
important
there.
message from today is love the unloved.
Love the unloved, absolutely. The currency of eternity is love. Because love is really all that matters.
And
Comes down
love
to
the
it.
unlovable, right? I mean,
Oh,
some
there's
think trans is unlovable, some think Christians are unlovable.
some with
So we're
I
all
I and
thrown under the
I
bus
you know
completely.
I hear you, and I hear that. And I won't deny that. I won't deny that. And
Because they
there's
assume we're
space.
all judgmental. We all treat people bad because we have this little lens we judge everybody through. We think everybody's going to hell. And there are a lot of Christians like that. But just like you're not typical of every trans, and I'm not typical of every
Yeah.
Christian.
Well, ultimately, that thing about the hell thing, that's not up to us anyway. That's
Well,
out of your hands, girl. So why worry
yeah.
about it?
I don't think
That is not your
we're
place.
ourselves are the good judge of where we're going.
Personally, we're probably not. It's probably not. I think the love we give is the love we'll receive 1,000 times over, 1,000,000 times, infinite. That's the thing, is that love doesn't run out. It's not like it's not something you can count. There's always more love. The well will never run dry.
My dog was murdered by a neighbor's dog recently, and about a couple weeks later I went and bought a puppy from the pound, and my kids were shocked. Did you went and got another dog so soon? And I'm like, well, when my cat drowned, I went to the pound and got another cat, because somebody's always going to need love.
Yeah, they do.
I have love to give. I can't love that animal, and so I gotta, I had a lot of miscarriages. I went and adopted a bunch of kids. I mean, you
and
just got to keep going.
and you're loved back unconditionally. Yeah. I see Mary in back behind you. It's actually Mary holding the
Jesus.
baby.
Mhm.
He was put to death for being different and challenging the elect, challenging those in power.
That statue my son got me for Christmas, and I was talking not on a show, but to somebody who was training me to do something. And I said, oh, he mentioned it. I said, oh, you want to see that? And I got talking about it, and I looked, and there was black, it looked like teardrops on it, and it wouldn't rub off. And it was there for about a month. I was calling preachers and priests and people like, what could this be? And they just thought I was weird. And eventually I just got a wash rag and I rubbed real hard and it come off. But there was like tears had dropped on to his chest from her, and they were black, but they
Oh,
were
wow.
shiny, like it was painted on, enameled or something. Somebody said, oh, you shouldn't have took that off. And I said, it was driving me crazy because I couldn't figure out, why is this here? But yeah.
Mary said, um, be it unto me as you have said. And that statue is why it's her saying, be it unto me as thou hast said. That's why that statue is an image that is in your room today. Because she said yes. All I did was say yes. Let it be. And it is. So,
Yeah.
but all of that comes from trusting God, having faith, and ultimately out of love. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much. You take
Bye.
care.